What is your best Dungeons and Dragons story? I got kicked out of my first ever Dungeons and Dragons game. Spent all day making a character, getting all their stats, learning the rules, etc. My friend who was the dungeon master was kind of uptight, so it was very much a his way or the highway scenario. He let me make the first move, since I'm a noob. We had just walked into a cave and the entrance had caved in. Screwing around, I said I wanted to stab the ceiling with my glaive in anger at being trapped, to see if we could dig out. He glared at me and told me to roll. I rolled a natural 20 on my first ever Dungeons and Dragons roll. The ceiling crumbled open, revealing sunlight and a way out. My friend threw down his little handbook and told me to get the fuck out and never come back. So that was the first and last time I ever played Dungeons and Dragons. I played a campaign in the mid-1990s. Was both the first and last one I ever did, but I had a blast. The dungeon master was crazy into this stuff. He had all sorts of spreadsheets to calculate character info, which at the time felt pretty advanced. We played every Saturday for months and it was pretty open-ended, but he definitely had an overall story going. One of the first things we found was a map. It wasn't really clear what the map was for, but it looked like a city. We carried that map around for weeks, often going back to it trying to make something out of it without any luck. Finally one day we were sitting by a campfire getting ready to sleep, and it just happened that one of our characters had the map out and was asking questions about it to the dungeon master. He was being pretty cagey about it, but then he mentioned that something very subtle changed about it after the player sat by the fire. Suddenly we had an idea. Hold it up to the firelight. Nothing. I know. Hold it close to the fire, but not close enough for it to burn. It was at that point that he told us all to get up and lead us down to his basement. There was an ironing board all set up with an iron. He turned it on, and to our total astonishment, ironed the map, which had secret writing that appeared, telling us all sorts of secrets about the location of the city, entrances, trusted people to talk to, etc. All this time we had the answers in front of us written in lemon juice. We all cheered and congratulated him on his creativity. It was really amazing to be there for it as the mystery was solved. Edit. In case it's unclear, when we started the campaign we very quickly came into possession of the map, and it was both in real life and in the game. We, in the game and in real life, had no idea what to do with it. So we had it around the gaming table for a few weeks before we discovered its secrets. One time we assassinated a guy in his bed by creating a portal above his bed and shooting a cannon through the other side. This was during a Pathfinder campaign. I was playing a level 5 half-elf ranger. We were heading to a town, because plot, but when we got there, a large ice wyvern was wrecking the place, also because plot. I, being the smart nature-loving guy that I am, was able to determine that this ice wyvern was weak to fire damage, so I dipped my arrows in lamp oil and lit them on fire before shooting them at the wyvern. We were getting our asses handed to us. This wyvern was much stronger than anything we had faced beforehand. Our dungeon master knew this, so he hid a few barrels of gunpowder in a building for us to find and use in the battle. Our druid ran into one of the buildings and saw the gunpowder. The only problem is, in this world, gunpowder was not a widely known about invention. It was only just getting its start in this tiny village. There was a note next to the barrels that said, "Caution, highly flammable, keep away from fire." The druid sees that I'm shooting flame arrows and comes up with a bright idea. The wyvern was directly outside the house he was in, so he opened a window and rolled the barrel directly under the wyvern's legs. He then shouts to me, "Shoot it." Note, he is only 5 feet away from the barrel at this time. At this point I pause the game. Me. Wait, my character has no idea what this barrel is, correct? Game master. Yes, that is true. Me. So my character has no idea what this will do, and all he notices is a big barrel getting rolled out of a window with a familiar voice yelling at me to shoot it. Game master. That is correct. Me. The druid doesn't know what about to happen either, right? Game master. He has an idea, but he doesn't know how much danger he's in. Me. Okay, then to avoid metagaming, I immediately shoot a flaming arrow at the barrel. The shot hit the barrel, which then exploded. Our game master decided that the barrel will deal 10d6 damage, and that the size of the explosion will be dependent on the amount of damage that was done. I rolled the d6s and managed to get 7 6s, a 5, and 2 3s. For a total of 53 fire damage. We were level 5. So this is huge. This explosion turned out to be massive. Since the ice wyvern was weak to fire, he took double damage. The dragon got completely blown apart, sending body parts flying. The house the druid was hiding in also got completely demolished. The druid and his familiar were both blown into the wreckage and unconscious. There was also severe damage to many other buildings in the town. The town that we just tried to save is now completely in shambles. Quite a few villagers were dead or dying. We basically nuked this peaceful village. Rest in peace, little town. I'm so sorry. I'm playing with my first Dungeons and Dragons group right now, and we recently made our way into an underground cave. We were in trouble, as we had one boss hot on our heels, but had found the room we were looking for that held really powerful armor and a mace. The only problem was it was guarded by a spectator now, being the cleric. I tried to talk them out of fighting it, but they outnumbered me, so we got ready to fight. A few turns in, I'm already worried because this is going south fast. I decide to cast blindness on it, which usually isn't a great spell because it's easy to break and most creatures can overcome it, but I'm desperate and really want to know what happens when you blind the giant eyeball. I cast the spell, roll the dice, and it's effective. Then the spectator disappears. We're now freaking out. Sure, this is a super powerful attack tactic. We grab the magical items and stand in a very intense defensive circle, waiting for it to come back. It never did. Turns out, when you cast blindness on a giant eyeball, it automatically thinks the battle is over, and just sort of leaves existence. And that's how I, a first time, level 3 cleric defeated a boss with a first level spell. My first campaign ever. We had a party of about 6 people, one of whom was playing a minotaur. He was incredibly strong, but very dull and clumsy. We were in a battle near a chasm against a mage who cast a fiery explosion that blinded the rest of our party, but not the minotaur, because on his previous turn, he headbutted an enemy, but fell flat on his face with his dexterity check. So one of our blinded mages managed to kill that mage and the last remnants of his minions. Our next step was to try to cross the chasm to get to a small town where we could restore everyone's vision. Unfortunately, a rickety bridge was the only way across. There was a sign at the edge of the chasm by the entrance to the bridge that seemed to be important. Unfortunately, because everyone was blinded, our thick-headed minotaur had to read it. He rolled a natural 1. Our dungeon master said you failed to read the sign. The attempt itself makes you very dizzy. Roll for dexterity check. He rolled another natural 1 and fell into the chasm. First time playing as a group. We are on a classic save the princess quest against a hyper-intelligent orc or kobold or something who was supposed to eventually be our arch nemesis for a pretty long campaign. I am playing a chaotic neutral mage, pretty much the standard out for myself only character. We, being new players, were super broke, crap weapons, hardly any armor. We end up going to a cave where we know the princess is being held. The very first room, our dungeon master is setting the mood torches. Footprints in the dust, a golden sarcophagus in the corner as he is talking. I raised my hand and he stopped and looked at me expectantly. Is the sarcophagus golden or gold? Really, whatever, it's gold. Anyways, there is an exit tower. How much would you say the sarcophagus weighs? I don't know, like a couple £1,000. Why, I ask around what everyone's max carry weight is. We can carry it. We took the gold sarcophagus and abandoned the quest. Good guy game master didn't want to backtrack, so he allowed it, but the town we went back to was too poor to know what to do with thousands of pounds of gold. Since we couldn't spend it, we bought the town and imported the best craftsmen from other towns. Eventually, like 5 weeks later, we go back to the cave, decked out in literally the best armor money can buy. Pretty sure the princess was super dead by then. We played a few more games, but since we were newbies, we didn't really like the classes we originally picked, so we re-rolled. Game Master was a champ and allowed it, but he kept the characters we abandoned. Our next session was like 100 years later in the same world. playing a chaotic neutral halfling rogue this time. Still a turd. We start in a massive city about to be sacked by an uber powerful necromancer and his undead and orc army. Being a total ass, I go over the wall and start turbo looting the dead bodies outside the wall from the previous skirmishes. The rest of the party has learned to just ignore me by now. But the dungeon master sees an opportunity to get his revenge. He lets me find all this super epic loot. Fail. Continue turbo looting and eventually hear noises. I turn around and see the army, and at the head of it is the necromancer. It was my old mage from the previous game. Turns out he never became less of an asshat. I didn't notice the enemy army until they were within bow range, preventing me from going in the gate or climbing the wall. So I do the only thing I can think of. I tell the dungeon master I want to roll to hide. He laughs at me because I'm on a battlefield with nowhere to hide. I rolled a natural 20. Ends the session by graphically describing my halfling rogue entering the anus of the corpse of an especially large orc. TL. DR. Botched Dungeon Master's campaign, but Epic Dungeon Master made the best of it by making me play hide the halfling in an orc's anus. Me and a group of friends were fighting a demon, and he eviscerated me. I was knocked unconscious and bleeding out, and my girlfriend was sitting the fight out because we had played with the deck of many things earlier, and she had the comet card. You gain 1 level if you slay the next enemy you face single-handedly. My bleeding out self was just perfect, and she debated with the dungeon master for 5 minutes whether or not killing my character should give her that level. Thankfully, she didn't, and healed me instead, saving me from imminent death. I'm playing a thief now who is a compulsive liar, and I have convinced the rest of the party that I have the ability to detect lies, so whenever something comes up, they all look to me to figure out whether it's true or not. I roll every time like I'm detecting lies, but the rolls don't mean anything and I just make up whatever answer sounds fun at the time. So far it hasn't backfired and I'm kinda unofficially leading the party from the shadows.